Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
KLEK 102.5 FM. Good morning to you on your Monday, October 24th, 2016. Today is the first day of early voting, so make sure that you go out starting today, make your voice be known, and make sure that you vote. This is Community Conversations. Kato Wonder is in the studio with you, along with my co-host, Mrs. Kubila Harden, and we are wrapping up our Mayor's Week this week. We have our final candidate for mayor of the city of Jonesboro. We have Mr. Harold Copenhaver in the studio with us today. Now, KLEK, Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, does not endorse nor support any candidate for office, nor is any compensation provided for this interview. This interview is provided for informational purposes only. So let's go ahead and get started. How are you doing today, Mr. Copenhaver?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me this morning.
All right, Mr. Copenhaver, as always, we're going to kick it off with just tell the listeners about yourself and your background.
Well, my name is Harold Copenhaver. Came here in 1970. My dad is Dean of Fine Arts at Arkansas State University. I met my childhood bride in high school, at Jonesboro High School. We've been married for now 34 years. We have raised all three of our children. They've attended Jonesboro High School and Arkansas State University, as my wife and I did as well. I had my eldest daughter. We now are grandparents. Ild Austin is a recruiter for Arkansas State University, and he was also participated as Hal when the original Hal started. We were Red Wolf Family of the Year in 2009, and then my son, youngest son, is a sophomore at Arkansas State University, so I'm very well embedded in this community. I have been, over the years, from Rotary to currently I now serve on the Out of the Dark Board, City Youth Ministries Board, Bank of Northeast Arkansas Board. I feel it's very important to be included and to know what's going on in our community, especially through our nonprofits and volunteer. But again, I look forward to the next hour.
All right. Well, Mr. Copenhaver, now you talked about some of the things that you are involved with. Now, tell us why you feel that you are qualified to be the next mayor of Jonesboro.
Well,
and what made you decide to run for mayor of Jonesboro?
Well, as my background, of course, I was a former state representative in Arkansas, and once I came back to Jonesboro, to be honest with you, this was not something that I was looking to do until about 4 years down the road. Okay. But in visiting with the community, and I've had a lot of people from various backgrounds, from industry to small business owners to individuals to my family, ask me to truly look at this and pray about this in the direction that we have forward. And so once I started visiting with the community as a whole, it was an overwhelming decision to me and very humbling that people were saying we need a change. And it's kind of what I saw in the community from the citizens was that there is a disconnection and in our leadership of our city from whether it's their voice is not being heard or whether they're not being included. So I heard this from various backgrounds. It wasn't just a small business owner. It was all over. Okay. So this led me to the decision moving forward, and I'm very pleased and humbled by the support that I've received, and it's been very positive, very positive.
Now you said that people have told you that there is a current disconnect between what's currently going on and that people say that their voices are not being heard. So if you are elected mayor, What would you do to ensure that those people's voices are being heard?
Well, I think it's apparent on several issues that have failed in the last year and a half in our city, how those issues were handled.
What are a couple examples?
The tax code for number one, and then obviously the tax incentive, and then the property code. So what I heard from individuals there were that they just actually weren't included in the process. Their voice wasn't heard from the standpoint, and I've learned in leadership at the highest level in state leadership that you have to put people at the table. It's common sense that are for and against an issue. Let those individuals work it out, and then we come to a conclusion and we present that conclusion to our community and moving forward.
Okay. All right, and what are some of the other issues that you may have heard that people are concerned about while you were out and about, or maybe someone has come up to you? What are some other issues of concern, other residents?
Well, I think it's safety.
Okay.
I have really been involved with the Student Government Association at Arkansas State, fraternities and sororities, reaching out to the students, because what I hear and what I see now is 25% of our community is below poverty income.
Okay.
And then we have a fixed income base that's growing as well. So what we are losing are the 20 to 35-year-old producers. These are the young people. We're not incorporating them into our community to where they can build our tax base, and they can help create a better quality of life for our community and our families moving forward.
All righty.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
There was an idea brought up last week about possibly creating another ward, which would be on
an ASU ward.
An ASU ward. Would you be for or against? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, has anybody ever looked at the diagrams of the wards? It's
No.
pretty confusing. It's a very confusing map.
I tried to read it.
Well, I think there's a disconnect too from the standpoint of, I'll give an example. A state legislature, a representative has a district. Only that district can vote for the representative in that district. Okay. And in our city, many cities across the state operate in that same venue. Well, years ago, Jonesboro changed that to where the whole city votes for another representative in another ward.
Okay.
So I think the restructuring awards, and I don't know if that's done on a 10-year basis. Sometimes that's how the state restructures their boundary lines, is every 10 years. So I don't know if that comes up in 2020 or not, but I think this is something that we need to really look at it as a city. And should the ward only be voting for their participant in the ward, I think that's maybe we have one that they can vote for, the city can vote all around, and or then one participant has to, they can only vote for one person in their ward.
So let me just clarify this. So your position is that we go to maybe a hybrid system where one position is citywide elected and one position is ward only?
That's a possibility in each ward, yes.
Okay, because one thing that I've noticed we haven't asked is necessarily of the mayoral candidates, but of the city council candidates, they are in favor of ward-based versus at-large voting, and the overwhelming majority prefer citywide ward voting. So I just thought that was interesting that this topic came up in the conversation.
Well, and that's what I'm hearing from the people.
Okay.
So again, a lot of things that I'm going to be saying today is what we're doing. We've done some polling on our Facebook that was all, we didn't know the individuals. We had over 400 people give their opinions on topics and issues and about how to move this city, their concerns, and they were in detail on this. And so we learned a lot of things. We learned of one poll, for example, was that 81% felt that the city wasn't transparent with the issues. And so that was pretty pertinent.
We are speaking with Mr. Harold Copenhaver, candidate for mayor of the city of Jonesboro. Phone lines are open at 870-277-1080. Once again, that phone number is 870-277-1080. You can also comment live on our Facebook live stream, and our Facebook live stream is blowing up. So let's go ahead and get into some of these comments so that we can let Mr. Copenhaver address them. The first one comes from Mrs. Teresa Beck. It's pretty long, so here we go. I would like to ask Harold Copenhaver to explain exactly what part of the property maintenance committee was not transparent. He made some really uninformed comments at the debate. We had a broad-based committee made up of 9 people that met weekly for an hour to 2 hours over the period of 5 months. There were many volunteer hours put into research and discussion. It was televised and open to the public. It was announced in the paper. There was nothing at all hidden about it. We were successful in crafting a code despite the fact that the committee had members that were heavily invested in protecting their investments in some really blighted properties. We had one member who managed and owned property that was in horrible shape, and when he left town, he owed the city $69,000 in property taxes. This is public record. We had another member who lives in the county, not a city resident, and whose primary concentration of rental properties is in the area of town that currently boasts the highest crime rate. We were able to pass the code through committee in spite of these two appointees, and we did it in the broad light of day. This is an insulting position to make and to insinuate that the code was crafted in secret. Nothing could be further from the truth. And then she goes on to say, let me pull up the stream. Like I said, it's pretty long and involved. And then she goes on to say, the property code was wide open to the public, Harold. We had 9 members who devoted hours of our time to this. We met every Thursday night for 5 months. Meetings were advertised and open to the public. If anyone was uninformed, they just didn't get involved, nor did they pay attention. So, Mr. Copenhaver, your thoughts?
Well, I appreciate Miss Beck. I know Miss Beck, and I appreciate her efforts in that cause. And I think, in answer to that, it's not the transparency from the end of their hard work. Where it is when a legislator, and I learned quickly, anytime you have a bill that is 4 to 5 pages in length, you begin to draw questions, and it was how it was progressed to the public. The biggest issue was that the public, from my perspective, that I received was that the community was not engaged in its feedback. A lot of people felt that it was overreaching in many ways. And I think the best way to address this issue, whether for or against, is to either amend a current code that is already on to make it a simpler understanding, a more simple understanding for the taxpayer and the citizen of the community. To be honest with you, a 30-page in detail bill is very confusing, and it leads to what people might feel is misrepresentation. Whether it does or not, it's in the eyes of the beholder. So I don't believe our codes have to be long to be efficient.
All right, well, we thank you, Mrs. Beck, for your question. We also thank Mr. Copenhaver for the answer. We're going to get into, even though she hasn't called in yet, but here's another listener question that has been asked to all of the other candidates. And this comes from Mrs. Norma Farrell, who I'm sure is listening, but she may not be able to call in because she's babysitting. She wants to know about your opinions on expanding the jet service to Saturdays and Sundays. And somebody else even Friday called in and said possibly extending jets to 24 hours. So if you are elected mayor, would you be in favor of expanding jets to Saturdays and Sundays and possibly 24 hours? And I know that there's some potential issues with how to pay for it because it's tied into federal funding, but how would you address that if you were elected mayor?
Wow, that is a great question, and I'm glad that, is it Miss Norma?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad Miss Norma asked that question. And I've done some background work on this as well, and many people through the community. But one interesting fact that we look at community involvement, and this is the reason that I'm running, is to get our community together, bring it as one, as unity. And one way, the process is partnering with university, Arkansas State University, and our transit system. We take Ole Miss, you take Columbia University, and I can go on and on. they partner with a system like what we have with the JET system. We have 5 routes in the city of Jonesboro, an 80-mile square radius encompassing area. But you go to Ole Miss, much smaller community, much smaller population, but they partner with their university, and they have over 12 routes. So one of the key issues that I'm looking at is, number one, the students at Arkansas State University felt that they were safe on campus, but they don't have any safe travel off of campus. JET system would be one way to provide for that, but we have to have a collaborative effort of the city, the students at Arkansas State University, the police force there, our police force, and as well as neighboring, bringing downtown association together. So it's a collaborative effort. People are really excited about this as a community of unity. But that's what we have to bring forward. Jets, you're exactly correct. Due to the federal funding, we are, as a city, we're okay, but if we extend those routes, then we have to find additional funding. And so partnering with our community, whether it's Arkansas State or institutions, to provide that, but we have to provide safety as well. And we do that. One interesting fact that I found out in Columbia, Missouri, actually their city water and light department includes that in their fees. So they see it as they give back to the community by providing for transportation, because they see the need for their community and growth and safety. So yes, JETS is a wonderful tool, but we're not maxing that tool to its greatest need.
And then what about, well, one thing, like Arkansas State, I applaud them for all of the building they're doing and all of that, but then it's taking away some parking as well. So that would be really great if the bus would run on a regular schedule around, through campus, and students don't have to try to drive on campus to park and walk and all that. So anyway.
Well, good luck getting around campus, because now the way the campus is laid out, I just miss when you could actually drive straight through Aggie and straight down Caraway.
The Caraway Road, that's right. That's right.
And then another thing concerning JETS, expanding the service to not necessarily all the way in the county line, but further out, than where it does go. Like, there was an issue brought up about, I think the young lady mentioned, or someone mentioned about it not going all the way to the industrial park. So a lot of people work out there.
And remember the example when you did the KAIT interview last week, and we had to scramble to get Quabila there to make midday. Shout out to Diana Davis, because the jets didn't go out that way.
Yeah. And so it was a little struggle, but
and that's where I'm talking about. It's a collaborative effort. Then, if we can have the industry and then Arkansas State University as well. But what's more important here is what I'm hearing from the students, because I really have been actively involved in their opinion, and I don't see other individuals, moving in that direction and asking the students what's important to them. So not only that, I am a big proponent for intern programs.
Okay.
And so the JET system would provide the ability for that student then to go to downtown and work in the municipal building. The first thing as mayor is that I want to incorporate a full intern program in our municipal building. This has not been mentioned, this hasn't been talked about, but I'm talking from a high school level to students that have just achieved their GED, the 2-year program, and 4-year college as well. But we have to involve our students that live in our community. They need to be involved in the structure of what our community is about. So when they grow and develop their intellect, then hopefully they'll stay here and continue in a small business manner, work for the city, work for industry, but we've got to get them involved.
Okay. Alrighty, well,
once again, we are speaking with Mr. Harold Copenhaver, candidate for mayor of the city of Jonesboro. Don't forget, you can post your comments on our Facebook live stream or call us at 870-277-1080. That's 870-277-1080.
All right, I know we haven't gotten to some of the big issues, and we'll have to tackle those when we come back from break, but I just want to drop these out. Of course, flooding. We got to get into flooding. That's been like the talk of the century. Talk about, roads and the traffic and
the budget.
Yes, and definitely the budget, I guess, umbrellas all of this.
Department heads.
Department heads, any changes being made, the convention centers, your thoughts on can the city sustain private versus public, funding, things of that nature. So we'll get
revitalizing the north side of Jonesboro.
There we are.
And then overall quality of life for the city of Jonesboro. So we'll get into those topics. We want to make sure to hit those when we come back.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
As we get ready to go into the break, though, we do have another couple Facebook comments. Teresa is back. She's saying the bill wasn't 30 pages. That was just the code itself. The actual legislation was 1 page. And then Dwayne Harden says, checking in. Good morning to y'all. Well, good morning to you, Mr. Harden. And thank you, Mrs. Beck, for watching our live stream and for your spirited comments. We definitely love a discussion from our listeners because we do believe in each listener being engaged. Don't forget, first day of early voting starts today. We're not going to tell you who to vote for, but listen to this interview. Then go on our website, klekfm.org. Click on KLEK TV. Watch the interviews from all of the candidates and make your voice be known. Remember, your vote is your voice, as my fraternity says. That's Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, by the way. And shout out to my intern who is representing Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Anyway, enough shout outs. This is Community Conversations. We'll be back. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
How can you love that cranky, mean, and nasty person in your life? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. It's easy to love people who are lovable, but what about those who aren't? It's hard to hug prickly, porcupine people, but I've got some ways you can do it. First, hug the porcupine with your arms. This one's obvious. Sometimes a porcupine just needs your arms around them. Second, hug the porcupine with your hands. This is practical love. For example, if your spouse is overwhelmed, take the burden off them by cooking dinner and taking care of the kids on your own. Third, hug the porcupine with your words. Use words that build up, not tear down. For more ways to hug the porcupine in your life, visit my blog at markmerrill.com. Remember, your family first.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook.
KLEK presents A Harvest of Spoken Word Junior Edition, hosted by Quabila Harden, to be held Saturday, November 19th, 2016 at 6 p.m. Location, Whistle Stop Bistro and Catering, 5435 East Nettleton Avenue. It is $12 with the meal included. This will be open mic, karaoke, dance, comedy, and etc. 18 and under to perform. This is a KLEK fundraiser.
Car Today, 3404 Stadium Boulevard in Jonesboro. Car Today is a buy here, pay here dealership offering Carfax certified pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models with service contracts and financing for most budgets. Inventory and more information is available at neacartoday.com or 870-931-4224.
The court-appointed Special Advocate Program of the 2nd Judicial District presents Run Crazy for CASA 5K Yearly Race Fundraiser, Saturday, November 5th at the ASU Pavilion. Start time is 8 o'clock a.m. Registration for runners and walkers is ongoing, and Halloween costumes are encouraged to be worn but not required. Prizes will be awarded to the top 3 male and female winners in each age group, as well as the top 5 overall male and female finishers. There will also be t-shirts, pizza, massages, and a costume contest. Proceeds from the 5K will be used to help CASA's mission of helping children taken into foster care due to abuse and neglect. Registration for the 5K and other information is available at neacasa.org. CASA is a nonprofit organization.
New St. John Missionary Baptist Church, 308 North Main Street in Jonesboro, is under the direction of Reverend Ted T. Taylor Sr. Worship services are Sundays at 11 o'clock a.m. Sunday school is on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Prayer service is Wednesday nights at 6:30, and Bible class is on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. New St. John also has the Men of Standards Ministries, Outreach Ministry, Choir, Youth Ministry, Dance Ministry, and Missionary Society. www.newstjohn.org. New St. John Missionary Baptist Church on Facebook, 870-932-6915.
Lame excuses and other forms of voter apathy have no place in American democracy. Show that you care, do your duty, and go vote. This is a reminder from Cheryl Underwood Radio.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations with our guest, Mr. Harold Copenhaver, candidate for mayor of the city of Jonesboro. And if you have a question for Mr. Copenhaver, the phone number is 870-277-1080. You can also post your questions on our Facebook live stream.
All right, so I don't know where you want to start with the topics we left off with. Each one is as important as the other, but budget is like the biggest thing that covers it all. So I don't know if you want to start with some of the...
Well, let me just kind of preface that the main budget concern is, as you know, the raises were recently passed for police, fire, sanitation, all of the city workers. And no one is opposed to people getting raises because everybody needs, to earn a living in order to feed their families. But what a concern is that how are these raises going to be paid for in the future? Currently, I believe they're being paid for out of reserve funds, but there is some concern that in the future that cuts may have to be made, infrastructure projects may have to be delayed, or even a possible tax may have to be raised in order to sustain these raises. So if you are elected mayor, what will you do to ensure that the raises stay in place?
Well, I think first of all is, as mayor looking forward, if we are dealt this hand, which looks like we're going to be, one thing that I learned exponentially from former governor was that you cannot continue to take money out of reserves. It's basically a savings account. So you're depleting your savings account by doing so. And you're exactly correct. Going forward, year one, we know we're taking it out of reserves. How are we going to continue that? So we either have to really look at our wasteful spending. It's city, so we're going to have to go to the departments, see where we can go from there. But we're going to have to be more creative on ways that we can generate growth and generate revenue. And so that's the key area that I'm moving forward on, is let's not look at creating an additional tax. Let's not look at cutting things, but let's look as together how we can create as a community additional revenue so we can sustain this in the future.
Okay.
All right. Well, all right, so let's go ahead and transition into, since we're talking about city, talking about the department heads. One of the jobs of mayor is to hire and fire department heads. So if you are elected mayor, do you foresee any changes of any department heads? How will you go about that? Will you make changes immediately? Will you evaluate the current department heads to see their performance and then make decisions later? How will you address that? Because there are some concerns about certain department heads being retained and being let go.
I'm glad you brought that question up, because as in this process of running for mayor, the question has come about that, well, I hear this or I hear this. And under no terms have I ever said that if elected mayor that I would immediately change or have recently aware of other systems that our cities have, for example, a planner type system in Little Rock and things like this. I don't see those as systems that fit for our community. I think the city has already done a study. We've done many studies, but this is one to where I feel that as mayor, it would be my job to look in over a 90 to 100 day period of time to evaluate the departments. Not saying I'm going to replace anybody or anything else, but I think as any new mayor would do, and I would expect them to do, is say, okay, are we on the same page? But one key thing is that I am very family oriented, and I want these employees of the city to be aware that I'm not a guy that's I'm not going to keep my finger on you every day. I want them to do their job and to do it to their best efforts. And the only way to do that is to give them the freedom to do that. So I expect the department heads to say, this is a program that I would like to present, or this is what we need funding for, be in complete detail of how we as a city need to do that, and let them progress forward with that. That's not my idea. As mayor, it is to overlook everything, but I want the heads of the departments, the city employees, to understand that I want them to do their job and for them to be happy in doing their job.
Once again, we are speaking with Mr. Harold Copenhaver, candidate for mayor of the city of Jonesboro. We have a couple of Facebook shout-outs. Shout-out to Lashia Robinson and Blue Magic.
Alrighty. So let's go into another issue, since you talked about, budgeting, and then we talked about the department heads. Okay, let's move into, let's take traffic and infrastructure, and, the city's growing. And then let's tie into that the annexation topic, as far as should we add more land, work with what we already have and develop that.
Great question. And I think that's a vital question moving forward. In 1970, when I moved here, I was able to witness the bypass being built. Well, at that point in time, we didn't have any boundaries. I mean, the bypass was the boundary.
Now, for us young folks, what's the bypass?
Highway 63.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Okay, so we didn't have anything south of that, or really, West Side was the only thing that was on the other side of the bypass at that point in time. So Central Chevrolet, none of that was over there. So, the infrastructure, we're approximately 80 square miles, which means that we have about 950 people per square mile to pay our revenue, our general revenue. Now, let's compare that with Conway and Fort Smith, two cities. One is a little bit larger, one's a little bit smaller than we are. So their city encompasses less mileage, and they have about 1,400 people per square mile to pay the same fees. So that's taking care of their policemen, firemen, infrastructure, so they have more assets and more revenue to do that. So when it comes to annexation, we have to revitalize our community inside. I'm very strong and a proponent of that, moving forward on not so much expanding our boundaries, because when we expand our boundaries, now we have to build more fire stations. We have to provide more services for our police officers who are already strained as is, and so the expense is much greater. So my key is to break the boundaries down in our community, as far as Arkansas State University, the downtown, moving into North Jonesboro, East Jonesboro. That is how we generate our infrastructure and build a community response.
And transitioning into that, as you know, the northern part of Jonesboro economically has not kept up with the rest of Jonesboro. What, if you are elected mayor, would you propose to attract industry, entertainment, restaurants, things of that nature to the north side? I know there has been some talk of one of the reasons why there's not these things on the north side, because the infrastructure has not caught up and it would be costly. So what would you do, just from an infrastructure standpoint and any other aspect, but we're going to take this question call, but we're going to come back to that. KLK, who's this?
Hey, I got a question about why he thinks it would take 10 years to make a water
sir, what's your name first? Sir, what's your name?
I don't understand why it would take 10 years.
Sir, what's your name?
Oh, Mark Pillow.
Okay. All right, Mr. Pillow, go ahead and ask your question.
the process can be started with executive order out of the mayor's office. Use the Census Bureau's continuing population survey for the redrawing of the boundaries, and it would lower the 20,000 plus we've picked up since this system was set up and redistribute the representation. I don't see why it would take 10 years.
Okay, I think his question was, why do you think it would take 10 years for? Say it one more time, Mark.
Why would it take 10 years to create a Ward 7?
Why would it take 10 years to create a Ward 7?
No, well, Mark, here's my response. It wasn't taking 10 years. The state does its districting every 10 years. So I'm not saying it would take 10 years for that. What I was talking about was the boundary lines that the state of Arkansas does for its districts. So if that's done every 10 years, that would be 2020 coming forward. So no, I didn't. That wasn't a 10-year frame on that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you for the call, Mr. Pillow. All right, getting back to our question on the north side. So what would you do to help revitalize the north side of Jonesboro?
Well, and I think everybody in this community needs to be aware that what we do in North Jonesboro reflects on the rest of the community. And again, this is some of the community involvement that we have to continue. We have to show why we need to progress in North, East, Jonesboro. This is key, and involving, I think we have to show that, hey, we're going to invest in the safety of our students, in the safety of that community, number one, which allows us then, I've looked into the possibility of community policing. I think we heard our two vice president candidates a couple of weeks ago. They agreed on one issue, and that was community policing. So that's...
Well, Mr. Copenhaver, not to cut you off, you mentioned community policing. And what is your definition of that? Because from what I understand, that is something that is currently already being done from the interviews that we've had with Chief Elliott.
Mm-hmm. What I mean is to go even further in what we do. We don't have police substations that are actively with police officers on full duty. You look at a community or students. My daughter was a teacher at West School, very much involved. I believe in those students, and as a state representative, I gave those students hopefully everything I could have offered because these students need a fair shot as everybody else. And community policing, they don't know their police officer. I think it's very important for that police officer to be possibly afoot or on bicycle. Bicycle, we had already done that previously, and from the results that we had, it was very positive. Now, it takes a special officer to want to do that. Yes. So that's not for every officer. But I believe there are officers out there that really have the passion for the individuals in the community, but being, what do they call, substations, police substations, but actively have officers in the substations.
Okay. And again, bringing it back to the budget, how would that, be afforded to be paid for?
Well, again, that's one of those issues we have to look at, and through transparency and efficiency, and if that's affordable, then that would be a goal that I would be attracting to do. But if we have safer areas and safer neighborhoods, that will adhere toward more industry. That will adhere toward what we need to move forward. The STARS program and these type programs that gets our youth involved in our community, that's very positive, and it's a direct reflection. But as a city, we have got to really move in that direction.
Okay. And speaking of, you mentioned industry, what are some other things that you would do to attract industry to the city of Jonesboro? And tying into that, your thoughts on the two convention centers and how that ties into this whole situation, and your thoughts on how that went down with the convention centers.
Okay. Well, let's go back many years, and it's probably before you were born, but
78.
78. Yes, probably was.
I'm not ashamed.
But let's look at what our community did, which was absolutely amazing. We had a vision back in the 70s, and our leaders back then, they came together and they said, okay, agriculture is our base here. agriculture provides production, we have chemical production, and we can provide agri-research. But what industry went along with agriculture? Well, look at what we have. We have post. We have other industry in our community that are recession-proof, but it's agri-related to what we have in our community. Those industries came together because we had leaders in our community that went out and sought them. Okay, so the change in the way that is done currently is not by just going to Little Rock and Washington, D.C. anymore. As a mayor, we have to address it with the Chamber of Commerce, with other industries in our community and other leaders. What industries do we need to go out and look to bring into our community? But it also builds into small businesses. Our small businesses, we have to buy local. We've got to support our tree trunks, and that's our small businesses. So what can we do as a community? This is one of my main goals, is how do we incorporate our small businesses back into our community to where they feel that our community then can support them in moving forward. But moving on to both convention centers, you know, this is something that I have seen through from the beginning to the end. I've seen the process. I've watched the A&P committees. I've attended all but one of those meetings. And I don't believe I saw any other candidates at those meetings. So the investment of not one, but now two hotels and convention centers in our community is very large, because, to be honest with you, getting one here took years and years, and then they even decided not to build. So in the process, I've watched Tim O'Reilly come in and present a very thorough program. They obviously have built convention centers all across the United States, and they are very successful. And then he also has the John Q. Hammond's team that originally looked at the first convention center as who he works with. They are employed by him. So Arkansas State University, they bring in millions and millions of dollars on weekends for events. That within itself, I think, makes a very strong candidate for that one to be successful. But more importantly to me is it provides the program and the ability for our students, which can be from here, they can be from anywhere in Northeast Arkansas, Missouri, that attend Arkansas State University, to have a future, because they're going to have a degree program. Okay. Now, this is key, and whether they stay here in our community with our other hotels, but they're going to be trained, experienced, and ready to be employed wherever they go in the country. Okay. In that program. The Keller Group, on the other hand, I think they've got some ability as well, but it's different. They're going to have easier accessibility. It's in an area where there are more restaurants, but as I mentioned to you earlier, the community as a whole feels it's going to be very hard. Through the poll that I've taken, it was about 79% felt that only one convention center would financially be able to do it. But as mayor, I would treat both equally fair in moving forward. We have to do that. We got to have a collaborative effort.
And I kind of want to tie into that, because I just read in the Sun about, because the A&P Commission it's going to spend $150,000 promoting it, that they're having to make cuts in some of the other things that are going on. And I don't know what role the mayor has in that. One of the things that kind of struck me was that the MLK parade, they got their budget cut from like $9,000 something to $500. So, well, we're going to take this call, Miss Farrell, and then we come back to that. Kaylee K.
Good morning.
Hey, Miss Farrell.
Good morning to you. Guess, Mr. I think I'm going to pronounce your name.
Copenhaver.
Copenhaver.
Hello?
It's Mr. Copenhaver.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing it right, but I'm from North Jonesboro, a lifelong citizen here, and I'm like Kato. I'm not going to tell you my age, but I'm proud of it. I was born in 1951. But I'm a community activist, and I love the city. I went away for a little while, but the job, but I've been there for years now, and I've seen it growing to where it is today with the leadership of the city officials that we have now. And I would like, if you're going, if and when you do become mayor, please do not cut any budget that has anything to do with the jet system. I guess I could say that I'm a jet girl.
Yeah.
I rode the jet buses for a couple of years before I decided to get another car and start back driving. But I hear what the people have to say. They ride the buses. They want the extended hours. They want the Saturdays and Sundays. And I still do ride the bus sometimes just because I like riding it. And it was one of the things that my mother had a passion for before she died, that we had that bus. But, and people are proud of it. The citizens are, and they use it. As you probably know, how the ridership has gone up and still is going. And if they cut anything, please don't cut that.
All right. Well, Ms. Farrell, we're getting ready to go to break. We thank you for the call.
Okay, all my other questions, he's already answered them. Thank y'all for asking for me.
All right, thank you. All right, so as you hear, she definitely supports the bus. When we come back from the break, I want to get back to my question to where I asked, what are your thoughts on the A&P Commission having to cut funding for other projects because of their funding of the convention center, and if there's anything that the mayor can even do about it? So we'll be back. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. You want to stop living from paycheck to paycheck. Here are some things you can do to change that. Start with accounting for all of your expenses and debts and put together a monthly household budget and spending plan. Then focus on cutting costs and looking for ways to bring in extra cash. There are only two ways to increase cash flow: reduce expenses and increase income. Learn to do without nice-to-haves so you can have the must-haves. Be willing to take on a second or third job, start a side business, or do freelance work. See what you own that you could either save money by getting rid of it or even make money by selling it. Use the resulting savings or income to get rid of debt. Two major expenses to consider: housing and transportation. Consider moving to a less expensive living space or taking in a roommate or boarder. To stop living from paycheck to paycheck, your income must exceed your expenses. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Experience the joy with Bishop Adrian R. Rogers of Fullness of Joy Church, 3307 Ray Street, Jonesboro, Arkansas, 72401.
Did you know that KLEK 102.5 FM is a non-profit organization? Did you know that you can donate to KLEK 102.5 FM and your donation is tax deductible? Donations to non-profit organizations such as KLEK can reduce the amount of taxes you may owe the IRS or increase the amount of any potential tax refund. Support your KLEK today. You can donate by calling 870-277-1080, visiting our studio at 1411 Franklin Street in Jonesboro, or on our website www.klekfm.org. We at KLEK 102.5 FM are blessed and grateful for your support.
On the KLEK community calendar, St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church will have their first annual coat drive on Saturday, November 5th from noon to 4 p.m. The event will be held at the Parker Park Community Center at 411 West Monroe Avenue in Jonesboro. Donation and event details are available through Pastor Perry Jackson at 870-897-7140 or Jewel McCalland at jewelmccalland@suddenlink.org. jonesboro.net.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations with our guest, Mr. Harold Copenhaver. Before the break, I was asking him about the A&P Commission cutting funding for some of the other events in town due to the funding for the convention center. Just want to kind of get his thoughts on that. Is there even something the mayor can do to address that, or is that totally independent of the mayor's office?
Well, I think there's two ways that we can increase that revenue, and that is to have more. That revenue is generated through individuals coming and coming to our city and purchasing food and things like that. So entertainment purposes. So we have to look at ways to generate our community, in my opinion, from everybody else. We are a neophyte when it comes to what we do in our community as far as entertainment. Other communities in our state are, to be honest with you, are much more progressive, which leads to these 20 and 35-year-olds going to those communities because they have things for them to offer for quality of life. But that type of quality of life then generates the additional revenue that thus we don't have to cut. So that provides more spending dollars for the A&P Commission, and they are on a budget derived from that. So it is a priority. Those A&P members of that committee, they have to see what comes in front of them, and then they have to make a decision based off their budget moving forward. It is unfortunate that any cuts were made to current programs that are already being funded. So again, I think we have to look for additional ways to create revenue so these projects can be not only funded but increased, derived off of that.
Okay. Alrighty, so there are some other topics we did hit, and flooding was one that we haven't had a chance to get into, so go ahead.
Well, and when my wife and I got married, and I'm not going to quote the date, but because I can't remember, to be honest with you, it was early 80s. And my father-in-law actually came over in a John boat and picked us up after a day and a half of rain.
Oh, no.
And so I'm very familiar with how that, we've always had that problem. And I think City Water and Light has done a tremendous job on advancing what we've had to do. In the city, obviously, we have a lot of work to do here. But it always seems like it comes around election time that this work seems to come to the forefront, and that's unfortunate. We have to be more proactive, and one way that I would like to see is we do studies in the city, or that's what's been done the last 8 years. A lot of studies, a lot of cost, and nothing comes of those studies. I would like to incorporate our intellect, which I consider students that are going to college in the civil engineering department at Arkansas State University, to partner with the city on ways that they feel they can do studies, little or no cost to the city. They're getting experienced and they're getting involved in our community. Again, they're not civil engineers at this point, but they can offer us hopefully different ideas moving forward, and then their professors, obviously, who are engineers, can say, yes, this would work or this wouldn't. But we have to be creative on this drainage. We have to be proactive. I know the Corps of Engineers now have been directed by our current leadership, but again, we've known about this since, like I said, my house flooded in 1982. So this is an ongoing issue, and water flows downward. So we have to work with our outlying counties as well. We have to assist, and it's a collaborative effort with them as well.
Okay. We haven't talked about like the quality of life of Jonesboro. I know that there's been a lot of improvements going on to the various community centers, or especially out of Cricket Forest, and some people would love to see more bike trails and walking trails and various things. And there's been talk about a dog park and aquatic center and some other improvements to the various centers that are already in existence. So just kind of go into how you feel about increasing, how it can be funded, just your ideas overall.
Wonderful. And what I've looked at and studied too in this race is what other communities have been doing. So I'm not going to bring up Conway, but yet I am going to bring up Conway.
Okay.
They're very progressive, and what they've done is their grants. They have really achieved a high status in a lot of grants, but they have not only taken the Greenway Trail, they completed the Greenway Trail.
Okay.
And years ago, I believe it was 8 years ago, that project was on the table, and we've put it together in bits and pieces. But the communities that went ahead and took that, bicycle trails, sidewalks, and really progressed that forward, this is where those 20 to 35-year-olds are moving, because now those communities have that. So what that does in the process, that generates income, because we have people staying here.
Yes.
Okay, it generates our revenue, which allows us then to incorporate our community together. And this is one thing that I see and I pledge to do is collaborative efforts of our downtown community, Arkansas State University, and building our infrastructure North Jonesboro. And we are lacking. You know what the students tell me?
What?
They tell me that they would love to have a children's museum. Children's museum. So we have to listen to what our students want.
Okay.
They're the ones that are saying this. Now, moving forward on an aquatic center. Again, we've had studies, multiple studies on, and spent a lot of money on. We have a gold, silver, and a bronze plan, basically, that was done years ago that said, okay, we need 1 pool or 3 pools or 4 pools in our community. And now it's come to the forefront again because re-election of an aquatic center. Wonderful idea. The aquatic center, a 50-meter pool, would help generate individuals to be here over the weekend, which generates possibly millions of dollars of revenue to our community. That's what we have to look forward to do. Now, can we afford that? The way we can possibly afford that is with our community involvement with industry and businesses.
Alrighty.
All right, we're speaking with Mr. Harold Copenhaver, candidate for the office of Mayor of Jonesboro. You have 2 minutes, sir, to make your case as to why you feel you should be elected the next Mayor of Jonesboro.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity this morning. And you know, Jonesboro's my home. And I love the people. I love this community. I'm excited, number one. I'm excited for the opportunities ahead. But what we have to do is look for positive results, and the only way we can do that is through a collaborative effort. You know, change of leadership is not always a bad thing. It's a fresh idea, and I pledge to the people that we will overcome our challenges in the future, just as I did in the state capitol, as I did for our teachers, as I did for our first responders, for ASU and the people of Jonesboro. But Jonesboro needs a proven leader and a consensus builder. I will create jobs. I firmly believe that in our youth. We have to incorporate them in intern programs. One of the hospitals here already sees the validity of the new DO program, and they're going to have an intern program at their hospital. So they already see the importance of keeping these students here. We must improve infrastructure. By improving infrastructure, we make our city better, and it's excitable. But we have to keep our community safe, and I'll work hard every day to improve our quality of life, to make Jonesboro a better place to raise our families. And I humbly ask for your vote on November 8th.
All right, we thank you, Mr. Copenhaver. Once again, KLK and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council does not endorse nor support any candidate for office, nor was any compensation provided for this interview. This interview was provided for informational purposes only. You can go back and watch this video on Facebook or go on our website, klekfm.org. Watch this, watch the videos of all of the candidates, and then make your choice be known. Early voting starts today. In fact, as soon as I get off this microphone, I'm going down to make my voice known. I'm going to go cast my vote. I encourage you to do the same. God bless each and every one of you, and we will see you tomorrow. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.